everyone, this is Cailtin.
And this is Lacey.
And this is Women in the Trailer Industry. Today we have a big announcement, and what is that, Lacey?
So we are going to be moving our podcast to biweekly. We've seen you guys every week up to this point for what? We just calculated this morning, a year and a half almost. It's crazy. But we've made a decision to move it to biweekly, and tell us a little bit why we decided to do that, Cailtin.
So as always, we want to just continue to bring you relevant, useful information, and just getting into the latter end of the year, of course, we have to focus on revenue too. Yeah. So just really trying to make time for all the things, as we've talked about in many episodes, leaving margin in your life, and so we just really think that moving to biweekly will really help keep the content valuable, so y'all can keep hearing and keep learning.
Yeah, and two, just so that we don't too much saturate you, right? I mean, I know people do have weekly podcasts that they like to follow, and it's been a good run to this point. We've had a lot to talk about, and we've covered a lot of things, but I think now we're going to focus on more of pushing you guys or sending out stuff that is more quality-based for leadership and just that kind of stuff that we can take more time to prepare and really give you guys good information that you can use. So tools and resources and that kind of stuff. That's really kind of what we're going to focus on, so we can not that it wasn't good quality before. We hope you guys have loved it this whole time, but we're kind of readjusting, and everybody does. Like, as you grow, we've talked about this a million times. You grow and you change and you get better, and that's hopefully what we can send you guys.
Yep. So coming up next week, catch out.
Catch out.
My words.
Come out.
Yeah. Be sure to catch the Women in the Trailer Industry virtual meetup. NATDA is sponsoring a Women in the Trailer Industry committee this year at the NATDA show, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode. We also will have a Women in the Trailer Industry roundtable and networking event. So be sure to catch that. But next week on Wednesday, we will have a virtual meetup. And basically what that is we'll talk about a topic, ask for some participation, give our viewers and our members of that virtual meetup really some useful topics and useful resources, and hopefully some connections to really push them to the next level.
For sure. And this is for any women in business, so or woman in business. You don't have to be in the trailer industry. We really want to have a network where we just build leaders and build and support each other as women in business. So don't feel like if you follow us and you aren't in the trailer industry, you can't get on this. This is kind of why we made this, is so that everybody can be a part of this network that we've kind of started and created. I know there's lots of different women in business things out there that you can get and be a part of, but this is what we want to invite you to be a part of our little network.
And, we were also specifically designed for people who are in a male-dominated industry. Yeah. So if you're in any kind of automotive or anything that is male-dominated, our podcast and things that we talk about are really kind of directed toward overcoming those obstacles and things you can do to excel in that kind of industry.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's going to be our first ever virtual meetup that we have for the public, open to the public. So we're really excited just to see kind of what our participation is, and then to get other people's perspectives. Also, just even if you aren't a speaker, we're not going to be going around and calling on everybody to speak or anything like that. Really, it's just for us to come together. If no one's talking, maybe you may be called. You may be that lucky one, but we just really wanted to just open this up to the public, just because we have found a lot of power in what we do in supporting each other, and we want to kind of share that, and all of us share together.
Yep. And we're really thankful for NATDA and the team for help sponsoring this effort. I definitely appreciate them helping us when
so much work.
We get so busy, and so they have a team there, and Susan specifically, who helps with the posting and does the posting and things like that, which is super helpful. But I'm looking forward to Wednesday, and I'm hoping that y'all get a good experience out of the meetup.
Yep, it's going to be a fun time. Fun time.
So for the rest of the episode,
but wait, you can find it. The link you can find it on our LinkedIn page. That is, what is the name of the LinkedIn
Women
page?
in the Trailer Industry.
Women in the Trailer Industry. So you could just search that and then find the link on that. Or we're going to put the link here in this podcast down below. You can just click that and then add it to your calendar. And that would be one way for you to be able to join as well.
Sure. So for the rest of this episode, we are going to talk about, just some stories that we've had, some experience we've had, and specifically how we overcame them. Do you want to go first? You want me to?
I'm going to text Amanda and ask her to turn on the air because I'm burning up.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm having I don't know, hot flashes or what. But if you're a woman, you probably know this. So
I'll kick it off
on air.
I'll kick it off. So one story I have is for the last, 6 years since I've been here.
Forever.
Yeah. For the last 6 years, I've kind of been in the finance seat. We've went from finance through spreadsheets, finance through QuickBooks, finance through our NetSuite ERP, finance through 3 of different things, and
through several finance people.
Yeah. And so shout out to the finance people out in the world,
Yes.
Because it is definitely a grueling job, especially if you're in the controller position or the high level position, and really the one who makes the biggest impact on the financials. It's incredibly hard. And I say hard because our business started as a startup here, right? So it's all self-funded. There's no extra equity. There's no people with, I'm going to call really long experience who have always done things in ERP. There's nothing like that. And so basically we have to take people who have a personal finance kind of mindset and background and really train them into business finance. And so when you are the one responsible for everyone's paychecks, who gets paid, what vendor gets paid, what customers pay, all of that, it can be a very stressful situation. So first and foremost, the tools that kind of got me through that, one was faith, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
The deep prayers, especially when things get tough and you're really in a cash timing situation. Just because you have sales on the book doesn't mean that customers have paid. And so in that time period, until you receive that money, you have to pay payroll and the rent and all those things. And so you have to almost be really creative, especially for our viewers who do own small businesses. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How do you make all these things work while you're waiting on money from people?
How do you buy more inventory to make those sales that you need the cash to pay for your vendors? How do you do all these things? And on top of that, the stress that comes with, you're stressing because you have to pay payroll and you have to make this business work. But then also people are coming to you that need things for the job so they can get their jobs done.
Yeah.
Where do you come up with that money if it's not there? And so it's all of a sudden you are not just responsible for making those decisions, but then you have to drive the people that are driving the sales, because if that's not happening, it's literally you are one of the most important people essential people in the company.
Yep. And so I would definitely just say, faith first, and then
lots of prayers,
lots, and then just really planning. And I know that's hard, but also just get in where you, not necessarily a backup plan. At the beginning of this company, we, use credit cards and things like that. And it's not the ideal way, but sometimes you do what you got to do, especially if you want to make a dream work.
Which we're getting there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have done a phenomenal job of, getting us to where we need to be as a company. Also, that was extremely fast growing. So, it kind of took off and was super fast. We were having to hire a bunch of people. We were having to buy a lot more inventory. We were having to grow our facility. We're having to do all these things, and you're behind all of it, So, I mean, it's just been great. The decisions that you've made, the late nights that you've stayed up to make these decisions, and it stress and weigh on you, and you can see it almost. But when the light bulb goes off, it's like everybody in the whole company is relying on you to make those decisions, right?
Yep.
No pressure.
Well, dang, Lacey, you just got deep. But so definitely just having a plan and knowing what the goals are, and just having good people.
Yeah.
Y'all are stressing me out just talking about this. And just having good people to, really make it all happen, and to continue pushing on the other side when you're trying to figure that out, because sometimes you do get so tunnel vision in that. And then also the third thing is just to realize that personal finance and business finance is way different.
Right.
So I had no background in finance besides personal finance when I came in, and that's kind of scary too, but the best way I could do is read the book Profit First and then stuck with that. And it's worked so far. In Profit First, you have like the little buckets so that you don't overspend in one area and then not be able to pay another person. A lot of, in the beginning, what would happen is we would have a bunch of sales come in, and then it's like, okay, we have this much in payables, let's pay them. But then suddenly you have all your operating costs, and you're like, well, crap,
now
I just paid everything to something that may not have needed to be due then, but you had the money, so you paid it. So really the buckets really allocate between those cost of goods, the operating cost, and even putting back for your profit and your income tax. One thing I learned about profit along the way is if you're stating you're making a profit, but you never have that cash set aside, then you're just constantly reinvesting it into the business. So with Profit First and the buckets, you put that profit into its own thing, and then you can consciously decide, okay, I want to take this $20,000 and I want to invest it into new equipment, or I want to do this, but at least you can see, and you're not just constantly saying, oh, I have 20 grand.
Turnover.
Where am I going to pay it to? What payable am I going to pay? You can say, oh, I made this profit. How am I going to reinvest? Because everything else is taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's definitely helped along the way. And I know there's probably much bigger corporate finance than I'm even talking about, but I definitely think for the smaller businesses out there, the people who are startups and are wanting to grow, definitely read that book. And
yeah. And also, you've always kind of had it in the back of your mind as the end goal is to get somebody in the seat who can solely focus on that, because obviously you have to focus on many other things. So if you are a startup company or a small business and you're probably the owner or right under the owner, as Cailtin is, and that's why you're handling the finance, because you have to make this company work. But have it as a goal. I think it's a good goal to have where you are wanting to hand this off, but that's a major decision. So hand it off to the right person. You've tested some people out. And also I will say, if you're a small business or a startup, you probably don't have the money for that CFO pay that somebody's going to want that has all this experience. So you have to grow to that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can do that. I think we've kind of proven, and you have, just by after, 6 years, you're just at a point where you're okay handing off the majority of it, but it's taken that long, and that's okay. Like it can take that long.
Yep. And Lacey made a good point. It really is hard to make that step into paying someone those high dollars. Because a skilled finance person
they're worth the money.
Yeah, they're worth the money, and I mean, they are expensive, so it cuts into your profits too. So just really making sure that return on investment is going to get you where you want to be. But I do know, if we could have invested earlier, then things may have been maybe a little easier. I mean, because a skilled person may know how to forecast better. They've had the experience. But you also have experience and no experience because they get it done. So it's really just feeling what's right for your business. If you're a startup and you can't afford that, definitely just, find some books, read into business finance, really get ahead of the game before you get behind. Because I think it's so much harder when you get behind all of the stuff and you're just like drowning at that point and like, what do you do? So you have to take high interest loans and things like that. And maybe you have to do that anyways. And it's not a bad thing because you have a long-term goal, but it definitely is better to be prepared for that versus once you're at the drowning part and you're like, I don't know the way out.
You're already stressed, but you don't know at that point how to even get out of it. Yeah.
So that was my experience with finance. It's always the biggest one pretty much that I struggled through, and I believe really helped me overcome a lot of things in business and personally. just because it was so in depth. So shout out to all the financiers out there.
Keep doing what you're
good
doing.
luck.
Yeah.
May the odds be in your favor.
That's funny. Well, mine aren't like as super interesting as that, but I do have a few things that I've learned and some things that I've had to overcome. The first one, I have a background in e-commerce, and that's really how I kind of got started right out of college. And I was kind of self-taught. My degree was in communication, so it wasn't necessarily in e-commerce or sales or anything like that to try to give me that leg up, right? And really, if you want my 2 cents on college, like it is good, but you're going to learn how to research, not necessarily have the life skills that you need, like, or the hands-on skills that you need, but sidetrack.
I digress.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had to learn once I moved from just solely e-commerce to kind of heading up all of revenue and making sure that came in was sales.
Kind of.
Yes.
Come on. Own it.
I'm owning
Own
it. Okay.
All
So
right.
being responsible for all of our revenue driving avenues that come into this company is sales. So I had to realize, number one, how do I push my sales team? And how do you do that? First, you have to read the room. So we've talked about it so much, but like, do you have the right people in the right seats? That is something huge obstacle that I had to overcome is identifying, do I? And if I don't, having to figure out who the right person is, but then how do you read each person? Because each person's going to respond differently, and what's going to push them, what's going to motivate them, what is going to be this driver for your entire team, because you need the whole team, not just your e-commerce team, to make sure that you are successful and you're hitting those numbers that everybody needs to see for finance to be able to pay those bills. So I had to learn kind of like read a lot about what drives sales, what resources can you give, if there is frustration, how do you motivate, what are you looking for, how do you discover the right thing through discovery of talking to a customer, what is their issue, don't just talk around what they're talking around, ask them directly what can we get you, how can we solve your problem, and then the last thing on that is really picking somebody to be a manager, to manage these people, because as Cailtin, her own struggles with having to do everything else and then finance too, the goal is always to be able to hand that off to somebody who can solely focus on that team and help them in the best way that they know how. So that has been the biggest struggle that I've had, is getting to a point where I can hand it off to a manager and feel confident that I have done my part and I can be that good resource, but I need to get into a position where I can almost do a little bit more dreaming and working on the business and not in the business. And so that's been a big obstacle that I've had to overcome. And through that, really, another thing, obstacle, and not really obstacle, I think it was a good growing pain kind of feeling, but like, how do you be a good leader? So if you're a leader, for me, I'm a leader of several different departments. So how do I lead those different teams? How do I set goals? For number one, be clear. You have to be clear on what you want. So you have to determine what is your expectation. And then you have to be clear on what those expectations are to your team members, to each of them, and to your managers and everybody that answer to you, so that they know what you're looking for. So after you define that, you almost have to like do a good job of delegating the things that you need done and then letting go. And letting go is probably the hardest thing.
And I was going to kind of play off that one. We've been having to do a lot of letting go, and I even challenged you to let something go not too long ago, and you're like, it's so painful. But then Tyler kind of challenged my thinking the other day, which is the owner of the company, and he was like, really write down what you want to come to work every day and do. And as a leader, you feel like you have to like do this big thing of coaching and leading people and like make this like, I don't know what they call it, woo-woo experience, And just a note on that, I don't think it's perfect for every one person. I think leaders are constantly growing. There's so much information being thrown at everybody.
Yeah.
And you really just got to feel like what's right for you. There's always going to be different perspectives and opinions and whatever. But I would almost say character-wise, just know what your intention is and then be okay with that. Because there's always going to be different perspectives on that, and you can't control everyone's emotional and feelings about that. You can just only do the best you can with what you have. But back to what I was saying about delegating, because I went on a tangent there.
This is the episode of tangents.
But Tyler challenged me with the thinking of, instead of what you should be doing, what do you want to be doing? And it really stuck with me because I'm like, I'm not the person who wants to watch what you're doing all day and trying to make it better. But I'm the person for me, I want to dig into systems and I want to find the holes, and I'm a great hole picker. And
seriously, and you're like, give me the issue and I'll figure it out. I'll
you will not tell me no.
Yeah, you
I'm
can't.
gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually what excites me. It's not all the people problems, and I'm probably not the best at that. Trying to figure all of that out, but definitely the systems and how things are working and the problems within the organizations are my jam.
Yeah.
So kind of once I made that shift, I felt one, more comfortable. Two, I wasn't, his goal was to be happier. Right. And it's not necessarily that happier was the goal, but just more purpose of what I was doing. So that was definitely helpful. And then really just gaining traction to where we need to be. I feel like when I stepped into the kind of that position that he was talking about, that I felt like I've made a lot more traction in certain areas than I had before because I was more motivated to do it. I wasn't screeching on my mouse, clicking on the email. I was excited to be digging in and stuff like that. So I would just definitely recommend on the delegating part, figuring out what you like to do. And if you do have the opportunity to delegate those other things, it may be hard at first, but once you do it, it's kind of gold because you're like, what do I like to do?
It truly is.
And then, so for you, if you like e-commerce, I know that was the hard thing for you to give up, then maybe delegate all the rest of the stuff so you can focus on that if that's going to cause the most growth.
Yeah. No, for sure. But identifying that is probably the hardest thing, is making that list. And we've had an episode on how do you make your delegate list and elevate so that you can elevate yourself. Still working on that. But
and the biggest thing is Tyler said you have permission, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And it's that one word
that he just tells you you already knew this, but
thanks for giving me the permission. I should have known that, but okay. But it's just funny how those simple things just spiral into so much more and gain so much more traction.
For sure. That was really all I had on my obstacles. Yeah.
Well, that kind of took longer than I expected, but just to recap, we are moving to bi-weekly podcasts to bring you more content and valuable content and more resources for you to use in your own journey.
Right, for sure. Don't forget, we are going to be at NATDA this year, August the 29th through the 31st. And that is in Nashville at Music City, Center? Music City Center. And we are going to be having our committee. So, Caitlin, recap
we will have the Women in the Trailer Industry Committee this year. It's the first year ever. And then we have the Women in Business Roundtable that the committee is hosting. We will have wine and cheese, and we will come up with some great topics, have some great committee members share their struggles and what they did to overcome, and really have some great time to network among the tables and come up with even more ideas. So definitely register for NATDA, register for that event. We're getting close to selling out, so come on, I got some goodies for y'all.
It's going to be exciting. And then also we're going to be live podcasting. Juan and Keith with Full Send and Women in the Trailer Industry is going to be live podcasting, live streaming our podcast, live podcast. I don't know. We're going to be there.
Podcasting.
We're going to be podcasting. So if you want to be on it, come. come on the kick drum. Sorry. That was a movie reference. All right.
Mom joke. Okay. All right, so that's it for today's episode, and we'll follow anywhere you watch your podcast, and we'll see you next time.